Welcome you all to this brief presentation for the common course Writing for Academic and Professional Success, a common course for BCom and BBA students at the University of Calicut. Here I am dealing with the module 4 Writing for Professional Purpose 1. So in the first part of it, we have a discussion on what is a review. We usually hear this word, a film review or a product review. Review is, as we all know, is a critical analysis of something. It can be a book. So review is a critical analysis of something. It can be a book. When we read a book and when we review that book, like how we experienced reading that book, what is our impression on that book, it can be a book review. Similarly, we all know that when we watch a film, we sometimes write a review about it, or we just communicate with our friends about that film. That can be a review of that film, our impression on that film, right? Or else, before we choose to go for a particular film, we read about the different reviews which are available online, or a product or a service. For example, we want to buy a particular product, say a refrigerator or maybe a vehicle. We first go through the reviews written by various persons, means how those persons have critically viewed that particular product, their experience of using it, the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages, all those things, the price, everything. Or sometimes we also go for review of services, perhaps. For example, we want to order food. Do we want to opt Zomato, or do we want to opt say Swiggy or Uber Eats? So we read the service reviews written by different people, their experience of choosing one against the other, and we choose that one. So review can be of a critical analysis of a book, a film, or a product or service, etc. And we know that we are familiar with the different views. For example, for film review, there are different pages in Facebook, or for book review, for example, Reader Circle. This is one of the leading book reviews in Malayalam. This Reader Circle, or sometimes vehicle reviews. Sometimes young people might be familiar with Strel or Iron Smoky, etc. There are which actually have reviews on bikes, like that. So reviews are useful to a customer who want to buy a particular or want to avail a particular service. So because it's a critical analysis of a product or a service. Then, for example, when we want to attempt a book review, what are the essential things we need to follow there? So when we review a book, there should be a title for that book. We should mention the title of the book, which book are we actually referring to here in this particular book review, and the author who has written it, or the authors who have written that one, or the publisher who has brought out the book, the publication date, the format. For example, if it is in the hardbound form or a soft bind, or if it is a Kindle version or a e-reader version. Now, all those things should be in what format is it available should also be mentioned, and the price of that particular book, the number of pages, etc. These things have to be mentioned when we attempt a book review. Perhaps when you read this in newspapers, in Malayalam, for example, Pustaka Parijayam, sometimes you find on Sundays along with newspaper supplements, we find this Pustaka Parijayam, or book reviews. In English also, in English newspapers also we find it. For example, the Hindu, there's a separate page on book review on every Sunday. So where you find all these details actually. And the reviews are really important because it is the quality of the review that is going to affect the sale of that particular book. If the review is good, people will definitely buy that book because people actually get impressed with the review. Similar thing happens with films. We all know that we will come to know later. So, dear students, please understand that when you when you make a book review, we have to read that book. We have to make a research about the author. By just reading a book, we are not supposed to. We should not attempt to make a book review. We have to read about that author. We have to have some idea, if not a complete idea, of the other books written by the same author, the nature of those books, and also when we start a review, there should be an interesting introduction to it. And also we should mention the theme of the work, what the book is about. For example, if we do not mention what the book is about in the beginning or somewhere in the first part of the review, sometimes a reader may get confused, because a reader may like to read about a book review on a subject that is related to commerce, sometimes on economics, or sometimes literature, sometimes history. So we should state the theme of the work. Theme. Theme means what the book is about, and of course the period or the characters that the book deals with, if it is a work of literature, and also we should mention the style of presentation, or what we can say, the language of that book. If it is written in a very lucid style, very interesting, simple language, or if it is written in a very tough, highly polished kind of language, that may also be mentioned, because every reader may not be comfortable with, highly polished language. Some people may be happy with only the ordinary language. For example, when you read the novels by Chetan Bhagat, for example, we might like to read those things because they are written in a very simple language. Whereas when you read works by some other writers, say for example Upamanyu Chatterjee, who is an Indian English writer, sometimes you may not prefer to read that one because of the difficult language that he follows. So it also should be mentioned there. So here I'm from your page number 110. I'm just reading about a book review. Just listen to me. The Phantom Tollbooth, written by Norton Chester, published by Random House in 1961, total pages 255. 10-year-old Milo is bored. He is convinced that everything is a waste of time. But one day, a toll booth suddenly appears in his bedroom. Because he has nothing else to do, Milo decides to jump in his toy car and go through the mysterious toll booth. The story develops around a mission that is assigned to Milo in the land beyond. He must find and return two princesses. This is a fascinating story of excitement and mystery. If you enjoy magical adventures with a lot of unexpected twists and turns, you will love this book just as much as I did. So this is just a review of a book where in the beginning, we are given a hint about what the book is about. Thereby, it arrests our attention, it captures our attention, our interest, and then we are given the details. In the beginning of it, you may have noted that the name of the book has been written, The Phantom Toll Booth, and also the name of the author has been mentioned, Norton Chester. The publisher has been mentioned, Random House. The year of publication is also specified as 1961, and also the number of pages, that is 250. Because why number of pages? Because if the reader should have an idea whether the book is a bulky one, or what to say, a simple one having 100 pages, so that they can read it at a stretch. So if it is a big one having more than 500 pages, sometimes some readers might not prefer to buy that one. So readers should be given an idea about the size of the book as well. That's why we include that. And some other examples of book reviews are also mentioned in the text that you may just go through. Now we move on to the next one, that is how to review, reviewing a movie. See, when you review a movie, you have to see that. So we know that we all are familiar with film reviews, or reviewing a movie, because that's something interesting. And most often, our decision on watching a film or not watching a film is often based on the reviews that we have read or heard. So It's very important, and also movie reviews are of greater help for a student because it will enable him to develop critical opinion. So, unlike an appreciation of a film, a review is actually, as we said in the beginning of this presentation, a review is a critical analysis. Therefore, when a student watches a film, when he tries to make a review of that, he actually develops his critical ability. He has the power to critically analyze every aspect of the film, to look at the film from different perspectives, and appreciate that one. And of course, to so it will enable a student to develop critical opinion on something. We should not be simply be carried away with emotional judgment on something. We should develop our critical ability. For example, when you what I mean is this one, because many of the viewers in Malayalam film and all are after the fans associations. There are Mammootty fans associations or Mohanlal fans association. So if a film is acted by Mammootty or Mohanlal, the fans would support it irrespective of their critical ability to analyze that film. That should not be the case with a reviewer. When you attempt a film review, you should be able to critically look at various aspects of that film. That is very important. And also, when you are watching it, you when you are involved in this process of reviewing a film, what happens is, you get the power to think critically. You can deduce things from that one. You can sometimes, just like when you do it in reading a book, you can actually excavate and explore, certain hidden meaning of the film, all those things, so that is a new way of looking at the film from multiple angles, and that will enable you to observe different aspects in a film. So when we look at some of the essential things that we should practice while attempting a review of a movie, these are some of the things we have to remember. First of all, we should know that we should add the title of the film, that we should not fire. The title of the film should be mentioned in the beginning. Uh, Title of the film should be mentioned, and then also we should look at a summary. When we analyze summary, the idea is that we should not be so much concerned with the complete story, because if you give the complete story of the plot of the film, sometimes people won't choose to perhaps go there sometimes. So only hint, just give a hint of what the film is about, that can be given. And also you can mention the director of the film. That is also important, because and also before you attempt to make an analysis of the film, you should be familiar with the common pattern that a particular director actually follows, how he has done his previous films, and so that you will be able to judge a film better. So make an analysis, study about the director, and then you speak about that. Also mention about the director of that particular film, and also the creative elements in the film. That the costumes, the color combinations applied, the camera techniques, camera movements, different from different angles that it has been done, the sound effect, the role of music. So all those creative aspects that you find in the film should also be analyzed, and of course, the casting, the actors, how well are they performing in the film, and all those things should be mentioned. In our cases, most often the common people will judge it only on the basis of the actors, whereas in reviewing a film, I think that is of least importance, probably we can say. So anyway, remember, these are the some of the things we should keep in mind while reviewing a movie. Well, another important review is a product review, as we mentioned in the beginning of this session. And for you students, BCom, BPA students, perhaps this is the most important thing that you may have to do. When you work with a firm or a business firm or something, they might ask you to prepare a review of a product, because perhaps your firm would like to start producing the same type of a product, or perhaps your firm would like to start an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with another firm which produces a particular product. Or sometimes you want to learn about the business prospects of a particular thing, so you should be able to look at critically review the product. So when you do that, you have to think of various things. For example, we have to make research about the product. We should read about it. We should know whether it is how far is it acceptable among the customers. What kind of people are using it? Are they really durable? Which are the companies which nowadays produce it? In which countries are they imported from? Which countries are they exported to? So all these kind of things should be analyzed. So we should learn about it. We should read everything about that product, do research by going online, or from better wherever sources, whatever sources which are available to the reviewer should be made use of. Then read the manufacturer's website. Of course, this is more important, as I told you. When we read, when we want to make a review of a particular product, we should visit the website of that particular product, the producers of that particular product, and we should, read the literatures which are available there, the brochures and all those things, the technical specifications, etc. And also we should get the product. We should get that product, or we should buy that product. We should use it, and then we should know whether it is useful to us or not. And accordingly, we can actually help the readers understand whether it is useful for you. Perhaps being youngsters, you may be familiar with the bike reviews. So many bike reviews which are available. Probably in Malayalam, Strel or Arun Smoky or Ajit Badi Traveler, some of the bike review websites, YouTube channels perhaps. When you read that, what they do, they get a bike, they ride, and they tell you their experience of riding it. They mention the technical specifications. They mention their experience of using it. They also say for what kind of users this would be useful. So that is the best example for a product review. So these are the things we must actually keep in mind when we undertake the review of a product. That is, we should research, we should read the manufacturer's website, and we should read other materials available about that product, about the pieces of news that have appeared in channels or television, or what you say, in print media, etc. We should get the product, we should use it, and we should know what the readers are looking for, and we should give them what they are looking for. Then only the readers will be satisfied with the review. So these things should be kept in mind. Then when you attempt the review of a product, these are the things that you must keep in mind. First, you should write an introduction about what you are going to review, what product are you going to review. Then of course, when you do this, you have to keep in mind the first time users. Don't imagine that all the readers know about this product already. So don't start off like that. You have to keep in mind that even a first time reader, a first time user of this product should know about this one. So you should begin it in such a simple way, so that even a person who happens to hear about that particular product for the first time should be able to understand what the product is. So therefore, it is very important that you should keep in mind the first time users of that product. And also you should keep in mind the experienced reader, I mean users of the product. For them, you need to give them some more details, right? That should also be given. And you have to describe the product under review, different specifications in various aspects. At the same time, we should be balanced in the sense We should not point out all the negatives that a product has, but it should be balanced with the positives, or the positives can be balanced with some of the negative aspects of that product. And finally you should arrive at a judgment, whether this good is, by comparing the pros and cons, the positives and negatives of a particular product. Finally you should pass a judgment. I think this is useful for those type of customers, or this may not be useful for these types of customers, etc. Like that, you should arrive at a judgment by comparing and contrasting the product, and finally the conclusion about that particular product. So these are the essential things that you may keep in mind while making a review of a product. Writing case studies is yet another important aspect pertaining to writing for academic and professional success. So when we try to define case study, probably we can say case study is a research method, usually in social science, in science as well as social science. It's a research method involving an up-close, in-depth, and a detailed examination of a particular. For example, a case study in medicine may examine a specific patient a doctor treated. A case study in business may study a particular firm's strategy, etc. So generally, a case study can be any unit of analysis, including individuals, organizations, events, or actions. For example, in marketing, we can say that, for example, a company's product does not fare well in market in a particular region. So the company would undertake a study of that particular region alone with respect to the choice of the customers, why it fails to attract, buyers, etc. So that can be a study of a particular unit, can be case study. Then so maybe we can read their stories. They present realistic, complex, and contextually rich situations. Of a dilemma, conflict, or a problem. So in order to solve a conflict or a problem or a dilemma, the case studies are actually carried out. Yes. So usually these case studies are of some uses, right? They can be used in a lecture based or a discussion based classes, okay, because we discuss each case separately, and that will give us more idea about a particular problem. And it can be real, and because the details are drawn from the actual people, and it is simply realistic, and they can provide all the relevant data the students need to discuss and resolve a central issue. And it can challenge students to example multiple aspects of a problem. They will be able to look at issue from different angles, and that will also make students propose a solution for a case. So these are some of the uses of case study. So now let us look at some of the topics and find out the matching case studies in the column 2. The first one is methods of teaching dyslexic children. Dyslexia is a kind of learning disorder, we know that. So that can be related to, we can say this, the last one, that is an experimental approach to reading difficulties of children under 8 years in Singapore. So that can be studied about to understand the different methods which are being used to teach children having this disorder. Then we can say the improving crop yields in semi-deserts. So this can be found out by having a case study of this one, using solar power to operate irrigation pumps in Oman. So that this particular case can be studied to understand how to improve crop yields in semi-deserts, like that one. Then reducing infant mortality, how to reduce this infant mortality. Maybe a case study can be conducted regarding a particular program in a Greek clinic, which where they were taking efforts to cut the smoking among the pregnant women. So that case study can be undertaken to understand how to reduce infant mortality. Then building earthquake resistant bridges. So in order to understand that, probably a case study can be carried out to the lesson from Chile, how these earthquakes withstood 2020 quake. So this can be studied to find out how we can bridge, how we can build bridges that are resistant to earthquake. Then dealing with the reoffending among the prisoners. So in order to study about this, we can actually have a study on this one, working and learning, a Brazilian scheme that encouraged people, the prisoners, the convicts, to study out of jail. So this can be understood. And in order to improve the recycling rates in larger cities, maybe an experiment can be conducted on the basis of the experience in Berlin, where the increasing public participation in collecting and sorting waste. So that case study can be undertaken in order to understand this one, how to improve the recycling rates in larger cities. So these are some of the things we can follow. And in your textbook, page number 116 and 117, you have some model case studies. Please go through that as well. We have all heard about writing reports because sometimes our class teacher, maybe our tutor or the HOD may have asked us to furnish a report of the tour that we have conducted. Sometimes we may be asked to furnish the report of the management fest that the department students organized, or sometimes we have been asked to furnish the detailed report of the project that we have undertaken in the last vacation, or sometimes of the internship. So we know what the report is about. It's a detailed description of the things in an objective way, with a clear indication of the purpose, the target audience, all those things. So this will be presented in a very structured, clear format. So here are some of the things that we need to follow. So when we prepare a report, we should follow a clear pattern, a clear format. So these are some of the things we should keep in mind while preparing a report. Especially when you prepare a report, it should have a title page in it. Title page, the title of the report on something, say for example, report on the introduction of uh, new courses in a college, or report on the need of developing new Android based applications for dealing with online customers, or something like that. So there should be a title page for the report, and then there should be the terms of reference means we should mention the target audience to whom the report is submitted, and all those details, and of course why this has been written, the need of this report, and of course the methods that have been followed while preparing this report. All these things should come under terms of reference. And then before we start the actual report, we should introduce an abstract, or sometimes the summary of the report, because without going through the entire report, a person should be able to understand what the report is about by just reading the abstract which is available in the beginning of the report. Then the content page, in which we mention different the chapters and page numbers, illustrations, all those details can be included in the content page. And then we come to the introduction. So in introduction, we have to, that's the main body of the report, as we all know. So we have to mention the aims and objectives of the report, and of course the limitations of a study, or any problem that we have encountered while carrying out the study. All those things should be mentioned, and also the research methods that we have followed, the parameters of research, the background, history, sometimes that may be required, that can also be mentioned in the introduction. Okay. So that is also an important aspect to be followed by preparing a report. And methods, we have just hinted at the methods in the introductory part, but we should here mention actually what procedure have we have followed while preparing this report, including the source of materials, references made, etc., should be mentioned in the methods, and also the result. The next part is result, which should include a summary of the result of investigation or experiment that has been conducted, about which we have prepared this report, and it can be sometimes in the form of diagrams, graphs, tables, etc. And in the next section, discussion, we can actually discuss the results that is given previously. That means on the basis of the findings which are available in the form of graphs, tables, etc., can be discussed, and the final conclusion can be made. And additional details can be just added as appendices, like the questionnaire that we have used can be added there, or any other relevant information which supports the study that we have conducted or the report that we are presenting can also be included as appendices. Then we have bibliography. We know that this is a list of the sources, the materials that we have used for preparing this report, and also the acknowledgement that can also be included there. There we can express our indebtedness and gratitude to the people who have helped us in preparing this report. And glossary means actually it's an explanation of the difficult, technical terms which are used in the report. Because if an ordinary person reads that report, you should also be able to understand what the report is about. We should not stumble before the technical words used. So glossary will help us understand the technical words which are used in the report, and all these things may not be there in every report. Some of the things may be modified, but certain things would be necessary, like introduction, the title, introduction, results, conclusion, bibliography, but some other things are sometimes optional. Anyway, these things may be kept in mind while preparing a report. We can look at different types of reports. Basically, they can be classified as recommendation reports, evaluation reports, feasibility reports, and progress reports. So, when we talk about recommendation reports, as the name indicates, we prepare this report recommending something. For example, our company has asked us to study about. Company would like to or procure some laptops. So company has assigned us the job of finding the best laptop for us. So what we do, we compare different products, maybe on the weight of its various specifications, maybe on the basis of certain specifications like the memory. For example, in the case of memory, this particular product gives more memory for their laptop. Some other would be weightless. Some brand would be having a more battery life. Some have more capacity, storage. Some have more advanced what you can say operating system. Some are more pricey, costly. Some are cheaper. So comparing different aspects, you finally propose a particular brand of laptop, particular laptop having some specifications to be purchased for the company. This is what we do in recommendation reports. And in the case of evaluation reports, what we usually do is, we actually make a thorough inquiry about something, whether it was useful or not, whether it was really good or not. We make an analysis. For example, government has started a new bus service for girls only, a girls only bus service for the college going students. So after 2 years, government is making an analysis. Was it useful for the girl students? Was it economically viable for KSRTC? All those things, and finally, the person makes a report whether it was useful or not, and of course explaining the reason for that also. So that is evaluation report, whether the project was successful or not. Then another one is feasibility report, whether something is possible. For example, government of Kerala has decided to introduce monorail, or what you can say bullet train. Imagine bullet train from Kasaragod to Trivandrum. So before conducting such a study, government will make a feasibility study. Suppose such a bullet train is introduced, how many new lands are to be acquired, how many people have to be evacuated, what is the cost involved for the implementation of this bullet train in Kerala from Kasaragod to Trivandrum, and what is the relative advantage and what is the relative disadvantage it may bring in. So, on the basis of the studies conducted, government would say whether monorail is feasible here or not. On the basis of the feasibility report, uh, you know, conducted, submitted by an agency which may be appointed by the government. So that is what feasibility report. Or the company wants to suppose expand their business to a particular continent, say in Africa. So they will go there and they will make a study whether their product can be sold in this particular continent, whether people would use it or not. So all those things can be conducted, can be counted as feasibility study. So, see, when we talk about this feasibility, probably you commerce students may have heard about the footwear manufacturers, who send their agents to African continent to find out whether it was possible to start business there. And their agent, one of the agents discovered by a company, found out that it had little prospect in Africa, because African people were not using chappals. They were not familiar with footwear, so it's of no use starting a business of footwear in say in African country, in any African country. Another company, they also sent, so that was their feasibility study, and they found that establishing a chapel manufacturing and selling unit in African continent was not possible. And another company sent their agent to this particular continent again, and they also found out the same thing, that African people were not used to this footwear and all, so it would not be possible. But they did not come to that kind of a conclusion. They realized that the African people, this African continent has immense potential for generating business in footwear industry, because if these people are made to use this, if you are made to accustomed to the use of footwears, people will definitely go for it, and they stand to gain. So that was their feasibility study. So accordingly, they have started establishing their firms in different African countries. So, okay, this is what feasibility studies are all about. And then we call it progress report. And we usually hear about it, when we are in schools, every year, progress report will be sent to our parents about a performance in the, autumn examination, or say Christmas occasion, or the final examination. Are we really progressing or regressing? Whether the marks that we have got in different papers have increased. So that is what we do in progress report. Similarly, government also undertakes a progress report. Government demands progress report from different agencies. For example, government assigns the duty of constructing a national highway, or expanding the national highway from Kasaragod to Trivandrum. So, one company, for example, National Highway Authority, is given the charge of that, or any other agency is given the charge of it. So, periodically, government will ask a report about how much they have progressed, how much work is complete, which part of the work is currently in progress, what are the works that remain to be finished. So all these things will be sought by the government. So that is what in progress report we find. And see, a progress report, of course, gives an idea whether a work is progressing or not. And when we talk about the progress report, we may some remember that there are three types of progress reports can be sought in three ways. One is by issuing a memo. For example, if it is inside an organization, they issue a memo to a particular member. For example, a college, if you take college as an institution, principal may issue a memo to a teacher regarding the completion of the portions before the examination. Or when the letter is sent to an organization, when a short informal report is sought from a person outside the organization, that is termed as a letter. Okay. And a formal report means perhaps a report submitted by an organization to outside to an agency which is outside that organization. For example, the college or the department furnishes a report about the classes taken, the chapters finished, the examinations conducted, and various curricular and extracurricular activities carried out, and submit a formal report to an agency, say for example NAC or UGC. That can be a formal report. That can also be an example for sometimes progress reports, memo, letter, and formal report. So these things may also be borne in mind. The next aspect that we would like to discuss here is surveys. And we all know about survey. Uh, Survey can be said as, they are the ways in which direct information gathering happens, not from the published sources, but straight from the real world. So surveys are conducted generally through questionnaires, but there is not much difference between the term survey and questionnaire, we can say. So survey, as we have already said, it's a type of direct information gathering in which a researcher is directly observing and recording things. Okay, for example, in a municipality might assign the task of counting traffic at an intersection. For example, we have the example of Nilambur Thare Chandrakunnam. So there the government would like to establish the traffic signals. Of course, our students were employed there when it was first done. The survey was conducted by the NSS volunteers of our college when it was initially introduced. So the students will count how many vehicles pass between the peak hours. That means from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening. And on the basis of that, on the basis of this survey conducted, they will really decide whether it is feasible here or not. When the bullet, what to say, Royal Enfield shop was started here. Of course, a study was carried out by some of our students about the possibility of having a dealership shop here in Nilambur. So these are some of the areas where surveys would be useful. And questionnaires is actually one of the ways through which we can gather information. For example, we can meet people, we can ask about their opinion, about their preferences on the demographic data, etc. Thereby, we'll be able to arrive at a conclusion. We can gather information, and on the basis of that information that we have gathered, by asking people about their choices, their preferences, by asking their opinion, we can actually gather information. See, questionnaires are to be planned very clearly and systematically. Otherwise, the conclusion may fail. The result will be counterproductive. So, a person who is preparing a questionnaire has to, take care of various aspects. One is, of course, when he designs a questionnaire, he should be able to understand that he should limit the number of questions. If there are so many questions, sometimes the interviewee may not be able to, or may not be interested to respond to all those questions. And the question should be very clear and simple. It should not be very personal, because people will shy away from answering personal questions. And of course, there should be closed questions and open questions. Open questions are those questions in which they will be able to have a free opinion on something, so that can be asked. Okay, and before we test the questionnaire with a person outside the organization, we can test it with our own colleagues, so that we will understand and we can rectify the mistakes. And we should not seek information which are not necessary for our survey. Don't ask any personal opinion, extra information that is not required for our study, because that will also be counterproductive. People will not cooperate. And these questionnaires, have different advantages and disadvantages, as we know, as it is given in the text. See, it allows a person, to gather information from more people quickly than by conducting personal interviews and all. And also, it enables a person to obtain responses from the people who would otherwise, would not give their response. When we approach them, they will definitely give them.